Welcome to the Bike Talk with Dave podcast. I'm your host, Dave Mabel, and I appreciate you tuning in. Well, today's episode is the beginning of a journey of about 14 months that will conclude with 135 miles through the Minnesota Northwoods next January. When I say next, I mean 2025. The Arrowhead 135 is calling my name. This comes with a warning. Don't make a film about something that you don't think would ever be a good idea to do. That being said, I did do a film on the Iditarod Trail race, and I do not want to do that. I could do part of it. Let's start with Arrowhead. Let's start with fat biking. The Arrowhead 135 is a 135-mile winter ultra from International Falls, the coldest place in the continental United States. It's the end of January, coldest month of the year, on a snowmobile trail from International Falls to Tower, Minnesota. You have 60 hours to get her done. You can do it on a fat bike, skis, or foot. I am choosing to do it on a fat bike. And why is this a big adventure for me? Because I do not even own a fat bike. I've ridden a fat bike around a parking lot. I may have bumped down a trail 15 feet, but I have never ridden in the snow. I've never taken a fat bike on an extended ride. It is definitely one of the cycling disciplines that I have never experienced. I've done road racing for 100 years, mountain biking, cyclocross, gravel, long distance gravel, short distance gravel, track. I've raced on the track. I am your state bronze medalist in 2 events that I can't even remember what. Probably the Kilo and Pursuit, or I don't know. I remember doing the Kilo, I remember doing the Pursuit, and I remember doing might have been the points race. But, I mean, there were 4 of us, so. Anyway, I have raced on the track. I've never done fat biking. So, did a film. It will be released this winter in some form on the Arrowhead 135. And it turns out as you sit there and you edit all of this footage and people are smiling and have a good time, like, I didn't see any like broken legs. I didn't see any people like crawling through stream beds covered in leeches. I didn't see people struck by lightning. I didn't see like 400 below zero battling headwinds for hours on end, running out of food. Like, people seem to be enjoying themselves. And as you edit and you're looking at all of these people having a great time for so long, you think that might be a good idea. So here I go, but I'm not going to do it without help. Honestly, I don't know what I'm doing. Again, never ridden a fat bike in the snow. That's going to be new. I'm worried about clothing. I'll explain that later. I'm worried about equipment. What works when it's 40 below? What works at 40 above? All of this stuff. I'm a little worried about food because it's so much distance, so much time between checkpoints where you can resupply or get a little bite to eat, or at least fill your water bottle. I am worried about those things. I am worried about training. How do I incorporate this kind of winter ultra training into my life as we know? And it's going to be a year-long process. It's not till 2025 that I do it. So today I am talking with Steve McGuire, I don't even know how many times he's done Arrowhead, but he's done the Arrowhead 135, he's done Tuscobia, he's ridden across Iceland twice, he's ridden from Alaska to Iowa, he has ridden the Iditarod Trail, He did it in 1996 when it was I Did a Sport and it was brand new. There were no fat bikes. People literally laced two rims together to make a bigger footprint on the snow so that they could ride on the Iditarod Trail, and that was his era. He also did it in 2019 where I actually met him. This is a great story. I am 150 miles upriver from Anchorage, Alaska, Kinnick to be specific. And I'm in this lodge, Rainy Pass Lodge, conglomeration of cabins. I'm in this cabin where I'm going to spend 2 nights. But there's 2 guys sitting there and we're chatting. Where are you from? Iowa. What? How do we not know each other? How do we not know each other? I still can't figure that out. I swear, we run in the same circles from the same state, do the same thing, and we didn't know each other. But we met at Rainy Pass Lodge. So Steve McGuire, we met while he was doing the 350-mile Iditarod Trail Invitational to McGrath. And we've stayed in touch, and he's been on this podcast. He was in my film, 1,000 Miles to Nome. Check it out. It's on YouTube, on the Bike Talk with Dave channel. And Steve is going to be my mentor for my Arrowhead journey. Today, I am focusing on clothing, and I will tell you why as Steve and I discuss this, but I should probably get into our conversation. So without further ado, I want to bring you into my journey to the Arrowhead Trail, Arrowhead 135, 2025, and my conversation with my new mentor, Steve McGuire. Hey Steve, how you doing today? Welcome back to Bike Talk with Dave. I'm glad to have you on.
Dave, I'm glad to be here. I always enjoy our conversations.
I do too, and you've actually been on this podcast several times. If I had done my homework and looked what episodes, I could point people to them, but look in the show notes to see what episode you're on, or just scroll through and see what episode you're on, because you've got great information. You do cool programs, you do cool things on bikes, and you've done cool things on bikes for a long time.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's fun to do things on bikes.
It is, isn't it? Well, we are talking about getting me ready for the Arrowhead 135, not this winter, but next winter in 2025.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I cannot wait till you're on that trail.
I can't either, and it would have been fun to dive in and do it this year, but of all of the things I've done on a bike, riding a fat bike in the snow is not one of them. Right. And so I feel like it's long enough, it's potentially cold enough, it scares me. It's a race that scares me. It's not like signing up for another 100-mile gravel ride where, I'll put the bike on the roof and I'll drive and I'll go do 100 miles on gravel tomorrow. But this thing scares me a bit, and there's several pieces of it that I think are different than a 100-mile gravel ride, or even Leadville mountain bike race, which is 100 miles through the mountains. That has its own kind of character, but I feel like there's, with Arrowhead, doing 100 miles through the woods on a snowmobile trail in the middle of winter. It could be 40 below, it could be 40 above, for potentially 3 days. I feel like you could get yourself in trouble if you don't know what you're doing. So,
absolutely, yeah.
And hence the 14-month timeline.
Good.
Yep.
We'll be ready.
I hope so. I feel like, and I want to talk about one thing specifically today, but in general, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, I will be physically in shape. I had a great year this year. I had, bless you, I had more than 6,000 miles under my legs, and I feel like I'm in good shape. And I don't know if hanging on to going fast with the morning road group means anything at Arrowhead or not, but I had a good season hanging on, going fast with the early morning road group this year. So I don't know if that translates again. Did some, long gravel rides. I did some long mountain bike rides. I don't know if that translates. We're going to talk about kind of training the physical aspect in a bit, but I hope it translates at least some.
So, I mean, we're going to talk about, I think, clothes today.
Yes, clothing. Yep. And
But
I'm actually worried about clothing too. And I'll tell you why when we get there, but go ahead.
so, one thing this is my observation. So I'm in the midst right now of preparing first for Tuscobia and then for Arrowhead, Tuscobia being at the end of December and then Arrowhead at the end of January. And to that end, I have uh, actually ramped up uh, my running
Oh,
so that I really have a strong fitness around endurance. So I'll run for an hour on a trail with the dog.
mm-hmm.
And I actually think at our age, that kind of aerobic piece is one critical piece. It really is. The other critical piece is uh, all the miles that you put in, just your legs getting used to uh, riding lots and lots of miles. Especially uh, during one hard pull. After 12 hours, it's all the same. You hurt, and you don't hurt. You hurt, you don't hurt. You're fine. But I think you're riding with the group in the morning makes complete sense, and I think it's a really good thing to do.
Good. I'm glad to hear that because I'll
Yeah.
probably do that again next summer. But and I do mix it up. Like I said, I did the Sycamore 100 miles mountain biking, essentially in our neighborhood. Um, I don't know. I probably did three other centuries. I probably did 6 or 8 metric centuries on gravel, or I mean, probably a dozen if you count road. Like Dee and I will just go out, and when we get home, it's like, oh, we just did 70 miles. So I
Yeah.
feel like that is good. I think what I'm going to have to get used to, and we're not on subject here, but why not rant and rave about this for a minute, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, I did I started a 100-mile run. I did 100K at the end of the
Wow.
day.
Wow.
And I remember, I used to be pretty fast as a runner. Um, and was out on a long gravel run. It was like I don't know, a 20 or 25-mile run, just out by myself. And I called a friend of mine, and I was like, Jeff Corcoran. I don't know if you know Cork, but
Yeah.
I called Cork, who had done a 100-mile run, and I was like, Cork, I don't know, man. Like, I am anxious. Like, what? And he's like, just be patient. Just accept that you're going to be there all day, and just be patient.
Yeah.
And
That's
that was a great lesson for me. And I feel like I'm going to have to relearn that, but on a bike.
right. Well, I was thinking of actually a different Cochrane, but yeah, I think that that's really it. It's what you and I have uh, an advantage at is the ability to control our mind. We can say to ourselves, I can break the spell of this thinking, I'll just move to something else. And that ability by itself is pretty important.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure you have 60 hours to do this thing, and I'm sure your mind does many, many, many things over the course of those hours that you're out there.
So I'm going to make a prediction. You're going to finish under 36 hours.
Oh, wow. Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
I I
I'm just
actually
letting you know.
anticipated 2 nights, but one night's fine.
I
One night.
think you're going to be able to do that.
All right, cool. Cool. Um, okay, so that patience thing, leads me to my anxiety about clothing. And that
Mhm.
sounds weird. And I know clothing should be a simple thing, like put on clothes and go freaking ride your bike. But
Mhm.
my model is I will get dressed for the weather. I will go ride my bike and then I'll come home. And when I'm home, I can take my clothes off, put on dry clothes, take a shower, whatever. I'm
Right.
warm.
Right.
And I've ridden in 10 below, 6 below. I've ridden in every situation, rain, snow, snane, wind. I've ridden in all of that, but in every single situation on every bike ride I've ever done, when I get done with my ride, I can get out of my clothes, have a warm space, whatever that is, even if it's a tent, um, and settle in and not worry about having wet, clammy clothes. And this thing, like, I mean, you don't really have that, you know?
Well,
It's
Dave,
not
you're,
like I'm
you're actually
riding, I'm not going back to my car at the end of
you're,
this.
you're actually going to get to do it. It's just that it's going to take 36 hours.
Well, that's
But,
what worries me. It scares me. There's a lot that can happen in 36 hours. It could be
so,
25 degrees during the day and you're hot, you're going up hills,
oh, yeah.
and then it could be 40 below at night. And I don't want to die. I don't want all of my limbs to freeze and fall off of my body. So
Well, I think
let's dive into clothing. Go ahead.
so. One is it's absolutely critical to have confidence, not simply in your clothes, but that you'll be okay when it's cold. And one of the things that I tell myself is I need to be able to leave my bike wherever it is if it's a disaster and walk until I get to wherever I need to get. Now the challenge is with Arrowhead. I think there are only three crossings in terms of road access, and so it can be very remote. And sure, there are. Um, there's a possibility that if you're really hurting, you can be picked up by a snow machine. The reality is, you think you're cold uh, at 40 below, get on a snow machine at 40 below.
Good
Uh,
point. Good
you
point.
don't want to do that. You want to walk out.
Right.
So I think that, having emergency clothes that you're confident you would be able to stay warm in, regardless of how long you have to be out there, is everything. And I've had some mechanicals, and I've been well below zero and had to walk, and uh, just knowing that I would be okay was fine. So clothes. Um, Bike pogies are essential. Bike pogies being the over mitts on your handlebars.
Oh, right.
And so you'll see, there are a variety, well, there are a number of manufacturers. I first encountered these uh, on the Idita Sport in 1995. I was in all weather sports in Anchorage, Alaska, and I was trying to figure out if I could actually keep my hands warm. And then, I'm sorry, I was in REI, and over on this stand were these things that I'd never seen before, and they were pogies. And I asked somebody about it, and they said, "Oh yeah, everybody on a snow machine and everybody on a bicycle."
Hmm.
So I bought a set of those for the event, and as it turned out, they were essential. It got to minus 45.
Hmm.
But with a bike pogie, you can keep your hand in just a nice, comfortable wool glove, and and stay okay. By the way, in terms of gloves, clothing in general, I think a wool glove is really, really good because if it does get damp a little, it's not going to get cold like it will with other fabric. One thing to avoid, I had this the other day, even in 20-degree temperatures. I had a glove made out of synthetic material that had a plastic-ish palm and then plastic-ish grip on the fingers and the thumb, and that really conducted the cold.
Oh,
And
really?
so,
You could tell it went right
yeah,
through
so
that?
I wear a loose-fitting wool glove inside of a pokey, and I've got three different sets of pogies. Uh, when I'm on Arrowhead, I use my Revel 8 pogies because they can actually function as a place to store things, especially food,
Hmm.
and they stay warm enough that works. If it's really cold, I'll drop uh, some toe warmers. You could do hand warmers inside those pogies while your hand is in there. Um, but I haven't encountered a temperature in which a pogey and a wool glove would not be very nice and warm. Um, that said, I always have emergency pair of mittens that I can put on that when I put them on have instantly made me feel very secure,
Hmm.
just like that. And I think your ability to feel secure is everything. So pogies and a wool glove are great for the hands. In terms of my head, I'm using a layering system, and I'm usually putting on a wool cap. What I've done lately that I've really liked is use my outdoor research wool hoodie and pull that hoodie over the cap. And then after that, I use my alpaca cap. I've got an alpaca wool cap, and alpaca is substantially warm. It was just incredible.
Hmm.
I wear that. Sometimes I'll actually use a neoprene after my wool layer, but underneath my other wool, with so that neoprene can uh, keep my alpaca cap from getting wet. I'm
Huh.
not a person who has issues with getting super wet. The reason why is because I'm super slow. So, I exert enough energy on the single speed um, to move me forward. But I do like everybody work in layers. And I can tell you, though, in terms of fabric, uh, wool, in terms of those things that are close to you.
We are not talking about like outer shells jackets
No,
or anything
no.
yet, but I do have this ibex wool puffy with a hood
Hmm.
that I'm actually pretty excited about. It seems like it would be a um, good jacket, but it has a hood, and you're making me think about the value of that hood. I'm typically not a hoodie guy, but I think there might be value in that hood right there.
Yeah, I think a hood is really good. My outer layer is a feathered friends down jacket,
Hmm.
and underneath that, depending on the temperature, I'll have more or less layers. But that has a hoodie, and again, just like the mittens, um, I have that so that I can throw that hood on and instantly make myself warm.
Hmm.
And that's valuable. The other thing that uh, is important to consider in terms of down is how a down coat is actually supposed to fit. It really needs to be not so tight that you everything is being squished, but you do want it fairly tight. we're used to thinking of a loose coat, but that down apparently functions really well with something that is fairly snug, not too snug. Um, so I do a down outer coat. But you'd mentioned 40 degrees. I've been in events where it's above uh, 32 degrees, and I think that's worse than 40 below. Um, you just can't dress right. You That's when I do get wet on the inside. It's easy to get chilled, I think, when it's above 32 degrees. Uh, but it's harder for me to get chilled when it's 20 below. If that it sounds uh, paradoxical, but it's easier for me to regulate my temperature riding when I've got a colder temperature. So, yeah.
Could part of that be because it's harder to ride because the snow is soft?
Oh yeah, and it's soft and you're sweating, and there's just no way for you to stay dry inside. And then you throw in like a wet, rainy snow.
Oh,
Eee,
yeah.
that is the worst. Um, yeah.
Huh. I want to go back to the head for just a second because something of note is helmets are not required in a race like this. And
Right.
that's kind of paradigm shifting. Do you ever wear a helmet? Do people wear helmets? Like, where do helmets fit into this?
Well, I've on Arrowhead especially, I've wiped out because when you look at the course, you'll see that after Mel George's, especially after about mile 73 to about mile 110, you're going to run into some significant hills.
Hmm.
And I've gone down, but I don't wear a helmet. And the reason why is I can't keep my head warm enough. This is me in a helmet. Now, if I put a hood over the helmet, I suspect I could. But usually what I'm using for lights, uh, I'm using a dyno hub, sun dyno hub with a K light that generates some light, just from the wheels moving or the front wheel moving. But I'm also using a black diamond headlamp, with three AAA batteries. And in the snow, in the winter, it works really well. But I'm telling you that because uh, it's really hard for me to use that with a bike helmet,
Hmm.
and so I like having it, uh, on my head. Otherwise,
Yeah. Do some people choose to wear helmets? Uh,
not many
Oh, really? Yeah.
do.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, Tuscovia forever, seemed to require it, but they no longer do require it. And I think everybody out of um, a sense of promoting safety suggests that it's something that you should seriously consider. Uh, I would do it if it wasn't so cumbersome in trying to uh, get a good system for warmth on my head.
Hmm. It's interesting. It's, especially knowing that there's a required equipment list
Right.
and every other race I've ever done has required a helmet and not a 20 below sleeping bag or
Yeah.
2 ways to start a fire
Right.
or
Yeah.
it's
That's right.
3,000 calories, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But so that's kind of interesting. Um, let's go from hands. We went to head, another extremity. Let's drop all the way down to feet because I am worried about feet. And again, my model is putting on shoes. I've got a pair of winter cycling boots. Um, oh man, I don't, they're SPD pedals, but if it's 20, 30, 40 below, I don't think they're going to be warm enough. I'm tempted to go to flat pedals and some kind of boots. like actual boots. But what do you do for feet, and what do you
So
recommend?
this is, I'll give you a brief history of how I've navigated this. So way back in the day in 1995, when I was preparing for the IDITA sport, there's no such thing as the internet really, and it was interlibrary phone loan, and then uh, picking up the phone, calling different locations, trying to run down uh, people that you got the name of. Uh, and back then, people were talking about converting what was a snow jogger, uh, a warm uh, running boot to clip in. And so I work with Ken Leffler locally to try to outfit a pair of shoes, and that just didn't work. And then, as it turned out, I took the advice of somebody in Alaska who had done this before, and there were a couple of days below zero, and he said, "Go ride for 12 hours when it's really, really cold. Try to start your stove and get into your bivvy, and get some water boiling, and that's going to give you some confidence." What I learned was it's really hard to keep your feet warm on a bicycle, and so for Alaska in '95 on the Iditarod Trail, I bought these huge 100 below boots at Cabela's.
Oh boy.
And I wore flat pedals, platforms, and they really worked. They were super heavy. I looked hilarious, uh, but my feet were okay. And then, as the years went on, I, um, I, I'm just starting to get a cramp in my leg from riding. Uh, as the years went on, I really worked at making sure that I could stay clipped into my pedal. And I went through the 45 North apparel, wolf hammers, bought the largest size that I could get so that I could put extra socks on. But for me, I always felt like that cleat was making my feet colder.
Hmm.
And for two reasons. One is it's a piece of metal, and then the other is your foot's locked in one place.
Sure.
And then finally, for an event like Arrowhead, you're getting on and off the bike all the time. And if the first 10 yards of climbing a hill is stomping your foot against the pedal to clean off your cleat, that is just a huge waste. Do that for 36 hours and you're going to be miserable. Um, by the way, so the different times I've finished as quick as 28 hours and as long as 38 hours,
Hmm.
uh, always on a single speed. But year round now, all I ride exclusively are platform pedals. And at Arrowhead last year, I felt like I had a great Arrowhead last year. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that it was really cold and I had really warm boots. Uh, I had a pair of Sorels that I, I might have worn outside to shovel the snow once. And last year, the temperatures were forecast, and um, it turned out to be that some people saw on the trail actual air temps at minus 40, minus 42. But I wore those Sorel boots. I only had to change toe warmers twice in the first 20 hours. It was incredible. So I just wear those boots knowing that my feet are going to be comfortable in terms of being warm.
Aren't they heavy? I worry about them being heavy.
That's going to be the least of your worries.
All right, fair enough. That's
Yeah, no,
good to
they're going
know.
to be. it's all relative. I mean, they're going to be heavy, but uh, them being heavy, even though it seems like it's going to be an issue, will not be an issue.
Hmm.
Um, you're also gonna, you're gonna be very. I don't know anybody that can walk or ride all the hills. Maybe I'm sure there are some people, but
Well, there are
uh,
some people who have gears on their bike.
well, even the geared people.
All
So
right.
especially wake 'em uphill. But you're gonna be walking up hills, and uh, you're gonna want me. I didn't want to wear uh, uh, clipless shoes uh, walking up the hill. Uh, but the boots are just fine, and you you know you're right to think that the more confidence you have in your ability to be safe and warm, the better off you're going to be.
Good to know. Good to know. All right, so now let's move to the interior. I don't know if we want to start with the lower, like the legs, or the upper body. And again, my biggest word, like I can dress. We go skiing to Colorado every year. I'm a lifty. I'm outside for 6 hours at a time in the through winter. If it's warmer than 5 below, we're open, and I'm bumping chairs for 6 hours.
Yeah.
I can dress for that, but I'm not working hard. I don't care how much it weighs. I don't care how bulky it is. But when I get on my bike to go for a 100-mile gravel ride, even in the winter, a mountain bike ride, even in the winter, a road ride, summer or winter, I'm not wanting to be bulky. And so
Right.
I struggle with the big, bulky, warm and the, I don't know, nimbleness of cycling clothing. And I'm sure it's got to be somewhere in between, but talk me through torso.
So, depending on the conditions, if it's I've taken different approaches over the years. I When I was younger and really moving fast, uh, I wore a synthetic, like what we called back then polypro, would now be capilene, dual fold, something like that, top, uh, with back then it would be polar fleece, now it would be wool, with simply a shell that could be very thin that would allow me to retain the heat that I generated uh, and uh, and block the wind. And the wool, or back then the polar fleece, would absorb the moisture, uh, and the polypro or the capilene now would wick things away, and that does work. But I'm slow enough now, and on Arrowhead, especially when you're having to get off your bike a lot, you're going to move from hot to cold, and I want to be warm when I'm having to walk or the like up the hill. And so now, what I'll typically do, let's say we go to Arrowhead next year and the temperature is um, 20 degrees. Uh, I suspect that I would get by in my Nano Puff and my Capilene One long shirt, and just go like that. Um, I'd have as a backup a wool top that I'd probably throw on at night because it's always going to be cold on a trail that's covered with snow during the night. But um, that would be different than in the past when I would wear only a shell. So I'm always, for the most part now, wearing down, either a light down or a heavier down. Um, but I'm taking layers to begin with a wicking layer, a wool layer, and then a coat over the top of that.
Your coat, I picture when you say, and this might be um, young, fast you with a like basically a wind shell on.
Right.
Would you have a ventable back? And I ask that for a follow. I've got a follow up to that question.
Yes, I would. I mean, when I did the I did a sport back in the day, I had uh, three changes of clothes that were in drop bags, and they were all the same. But I had three of the same jacket. Back then, it was the company that was great was Alpine Low,
Hmm.
and I had three Alpine Low jackets, and they vented in the back, and they were just so good. But uh, yeah, I absolutely want to get that vented.
Yeah, because you want moisture leaving. You
Your
want that
body.
to escape and get out of there and stay dry.
Yeah.
So where then does a camelback fit in to the equation?
So uh, I've worn a camelback. There's sometimes I think about going back to doing it. If I were to use it again, I'd use the Revelate. I forget what it's called. Uh, Version of a bag because it. Uh, Boy, I wish. Oh, the no, it's not terrible. I'd use a Revelate version because it's really easy to use a bladder in that bag in the winter. It's just ideal
Hmm.
in terms of how it's configured. But when I've used my Camelback, and I don't do it not so much because of the weather. I just prefer not to have anything on my back. As sure as I say that, I'll try it again. Uh, but
Well, does that keep the heat in and keep the moisture from leaving? I mean, is that a consideration? Like if you throw a camelback on, you've got this thing on your back, and that's going to not allow the moisture you're generating to escape out of the back, in my
it'll
mind's eye.
yeah, it'll still get out the back. You'll have that
Okay.
vent, and you'll be all right. And depending on the temperature, I'm either running the hose under my arm, uh, into my jacket, and always keeping it the inside my jacket, or if it's really really cold, I'm running it down through my arm to my sleeve,
Oh, wow.
and doing that. So one thing you got to make sure though is that you're not leaking,
For sure.
because I've had that happen, and I've seen it happen to people. And there's nothing worse than having water leak when it's really really cold.
Yeah,
Right now, yeah,
I feel like everybody's got a horror story of a leaking camelback, a
oh yeah,
leaking hose, or whatever. But yeah,
I
hopefully, I'm using orange mud that we picked up at the Gravel World, and God, I really like that valve system. It not only shuts down, but it's got another little valve twist to keep water from even getting to the bite valve. So I'll test that this winter. That's part of my 14-month strategy is to
yeah
test stuff like that.
I think that's the thing that you want to do this winter is if I were to have a goal, starting out like this uh, for Arrowhead, I would really try to identify those clothes and the fuel system that make you feel confident uh, in terms of them working the whole time. Uh, I'm going to circle back around to uh, comfort uh, in terms of cold, but uh, I think I would try the bladder. I think that's a system that works for people well. I use thermoses, and I go back and forth on whether or not that's great. But my strategy has been to, and again, I'm not super fast. I stop every hour and a half to make sure that I drink some water. So I literally stop in my tracks, reach for my bottle, drink out of the thermos, and I eat something. That's what I do, just to keep everything steady and going. Um, so try the bladder.
I will do that. Okay, so what about legs? I put on a pair of tights and I go ride my bike. And again, I don't. It's paradigm shifting for me because I can even be cold on the ride. Like I can get cold during the ride. I can get away with shorts and it's 42 degrees and I don't care. My knees are a little cold, but I got a warm shower when I get home.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you manage the legs, not freezing your um, quads in the wind, um, sitting comfortably on the bike saddle? Like, I think about putting on a pair of, like, I don't know, 686 pants or something, but I'm like, I don't want to sit on that seam for 36 hours. So let's give me your
So,
give me your
so
leggings.
okay. So uh, at at 0 and above, I'm wearing a heavier pant, my outdoor research pant, and long underwear, wool
What kind
long,
of long underwear?
outdoor merino, outdoor research long underwear,
Wool.
and I'm wearing my bike short.
Oh,
And so my bike shorts, and then the long underwear, and then those, uh, you know, little bit thicker pant, and that works really well to 0. If it's if it's
when you say a little bit thicker, do you mean insulated some, or is it just a thicker
just a thicker
nylon?
just a thicker nylon pant.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now there's some interesting pants out there that the they're insulated by the weave of the pant. Patagonia makes some really great. Uh, I like those, but I can get by with something that is heavy. One thing that I know from for me anyway is if my legs are too hot, that is a real problem. If my legs are too cold, that's also not great. Uh, and it would always be the quads that could get really, really cold. Uh, I'm never afraid when my quads are cold. Like I'm thinking I'm not going to get frostbite on my quads like I might my toes or my fingers. But when it's below 0, I'll wear. And again, I'm old and slow. I just want to finish, and so I wear a snow pant that uh, has a zipper on the inside of the leg to release heat. And more often than not, that zipper is it's open and it's dumping heat. The other thing I do is I wear suspenders for my pants because uh, I can unsnap uh, the snap if I need to. It's definitely a hassle when you've got to go to the bathroom, but there's nothing worse for me than having to constantly pull up my pants or get the back of my pants caught on the nose of the saddle or something like that. And so I,
Yep.
I use I use the uh, suspenders a lot, and
Hmm.
I like those.
Good advice. Um, Gosh, I had a question in there that was of utmost importance to my survival. I don't remember
Uh,
what it was.
Long underwear.
Long underwear. Oh, you've said so above 0 or above 20 or below 30. Do you do you leave the start with everything? Like, how do you have your down jacket stuffed inside a bag on your bike? Do you have insulated pants stuffed on your bike if it's warm when you leave? Like, do you have all that extra stuff so that you can switch and change and adapt as the weather changes throughout the course of the ride?
Yeah, I do. So um, I I leave uh, in the clothes that are right for the temperature, with a set of emergency clothes that will keep me warm under any circumstances. And so I always will have my heavy down coat. I'll have my feathered friends down pant. I'll have um, I'll have some down booties. Uh, I will always have an extra dry wool top, an extra dry wool cap. Um, I always have my expedition mittens with me so that if something were to happen, I would be able to get warm. And I'd be able to stay warm if I had to walk to the finish line.
Hmm.
And so that's always there no matter the temperature. I can tell you back in 2016, Arrowhead was really warm. You know, flirting with a couple degrees above 0, and it was impossible to ride. Everybody was soaking wet, including me, and having down clothes available to stay warm was really, really important.
Hmm.
So, being able to get out of wet clothes in emergency and put those on, those warm clothes is everything. Um, if you were to get wet, if you were to get super wet in uh, your wool clothes, you really have to simply have confidence in the properties of wool to keep you safe. If you keep moving and you're damp and you're in wool, you're going to be okay.
Hmm.
You're not going to die. When I was in Iceland, I think I told you a story where I fell into a glacial stream, one thing after another, one potential change of clothes. It was raining. I wore just my wool top and some shorts, and uh, did a few things with my feet, and I stayed warm at about 36 degrees. But I think uh, if you start to get wet and you've got wool on, you're going to be okay.
Hmm. Well, I think I'm going to take this winter and experiment and do, you know, nighttime mountain bike rides that are of longer duration, not just my hour and a half go rip Sycamore and come home, but go out for 3 or 4 hours.
So
Um,
what we're going to do is you and I are going to the Heritage Trail when it's 0 and below. And Heritage Trail is really good in Iowa because I don't like snowmobile traffic, and there's not a lot of it. But
mhm.
the trail does allow snowmobiles, and so uh, there's a track regardless, and that's kind of good.
Yeah, yep, yep. I figure at home I'll use gravel roads,
Yeah, yeah.
um, but I'll experiment with clothing and what's comfortable, what's not comfortable, and I feel like my goal this winter should be to gain the ability and confidence to go ride 3 or 4 hours, stop in a ditch, set up camp, boil water,
Yeah.
and be able to. I haven't decided whether I like sleep or just set up camp and then tear it down and ride home. Again, I like having that warm shelter at the end of my ride.
Yeah.
But uh, probably sleep and then turn around and ride home the next morning. But I feel like it's going to take me several rides to get to the point where I'm confident enough in my clothing, et cetera, to be able to do that. But I think this winter will be a great time for me to experiment with what's comfortable, what works, what do I have confidence in, and all of the things that you said.
Yeah. I think that that's what winter is for.
Yep, yep. And again, that's part of the reason I'm doing it next year, not this year, so that I can experiment all of this winter and really test stuff out. But we'll see. So, what are some of the other things we're gonna chat throughout the course of the next 14 months a few times? What are some of the important topics that you feel like we should spend some time on?
Well, here's some thoughts. One topic is settling on your gear and sticking with it, and not chasing after the latest post on Facebook or uh, you know one of the sources that are out there on the internet, and you'll be able to settle on that fairly quick. I I used to be in the habit of uh, rethinking everything until the last minute, thinking, "Oh my God, somebody just said this. Maybe I need to do this," and that's just really a waste of time, and it can make things worse. So that's a topic. The other um, it sounds almost cliche. 90% of the event is mental, and right now you're in absolutely fine enough shape to be able to do this. Uh, the hard part is going to be uh, when your mind says, "Oh my God, I could die. This is really stupid. I hurt really bad. Uh, I'm an old guy, and there's no shame in pulling out," and there isn't. Uh, but to be be comfortable with saying, "Ah, there you are again," and just being able to let the thoughts roll in and out, the good, the bad, the ugly, and just know that you have absolutely no control over what pops in your head, but you do have control uh, on how long it has control over you, those thoughts. And just keep moving forward. But we can talk about what's involved thinking wise in terms of this. The other are maybe specific strategies for eating and drinking
Hmm.
during the event. How to plan your food for the event. Um, how to just uh, what kind of fire starter, what kind of stove, what kind of sleeping bag, what kind of sleeping pad, what kind of uh, device are you going to use in terms of uh, uh, odometer or
Oh,
GPS,
sure.
trying to figure that out.
And powering it
Battery,
for 36 hours.
that's right. And how to think about that, and then um, systems for organizing all the things that you have on your bike to prioritize what you're going to need access to most often, and where emergency things can go to balance out the load, and what are different possibilities for bag configurations? Uh, Panniers, more of a bike packing setup. Uh, where to carry your sleeping bag, in front, in back. Um, what kind of straps to use. How to think about that in the cold. Um, what is too much gear and what is not enough gear. Those things. We can talk about tire sealant, tire pressure, and tires, rim width, and when studs are a good idea and when they're not needed. And then I'm going to leave you with this: always keep your tire pump, in your jacket, unless you want to be like the space shuttle and blow up. I had a
Seals.
I had a my first Arrowhead. Uh, I'd already done Discovery, and and I'd done other events, but I'd never burped out all the air in my tire, and I did. And when I went for my pump, which was in my bag in the back, uh, it didn't work. The O-ring uh, had had shrunk so much because of the temperature, and so then ever since then that pump is inside my jacket, staying
Huh. Wow. I would have never thought of that. And the stuff we learn from space industry. It's
warm.
amazing. Huh. That's awesome. That's so many questions have been just like flowing through my head as you say all of that stuff. And I'm stoked for another conversation to do this. I'm also stoked to talk about bikes. You have been working so hard on bike design. And I'm going to tell people to go back to episode blah, blah, blah to hear about your program at the University of Iowa. But you're expanding on that design, build, ride as
Yeah.
a kind of a program, which is super cool. But you've become quite a, I, I'm going to use this word, an expert in snow bike design. Like
Yeah.
your bikes are so very well thought out to work well in the
Yeah.
snow. So I'm excited to talk about that and kind of dive into bike design. And
Okay.
not everybody can have a Steve McGuire esque bike. Some of us will be riding salsas or Specialized or Trek or like
So
there are other fat bike manufacturers. So
the
uh,
goal is to have a bike for you. So we're going to work on this.
we will work on this. I do have some options in my back pocket, but one of like I don't know that I said this. I think I did at the beginning, but I don't own a fat bike,
All
so
right.
this is way out of my this is way out of my ability range. Really, right now, I couldn't figure it out, but
We
we'll
got to get you on the bike really quick,
yeah, for
so
sure,
that
for sure.
you're on that fat bike and you're going slower.
I
Uh, it,
I feel like I need to learn that. I feel like I need to learn how to go slow and be patient because
yeah,
that is going to be paradigm shifting for me.
yeah. The other is when you go, you're going to be riding with us, and we're going to have fun. I mean,
I've
you know,
heard the stories of you back of the pack guys. So
it's going to be really fun as long as Woody doesn't take his clothes off too many times. You'll be okay.
fair enough. I'm not worried about me when Woody takes his clothes off. I'll worry about Woody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm totally looking forward to that, and I feel like I've talked to Ken Kruger already, the director of the race, and he has many good things to say about the back of the pack guys. One of which was, "Oh, you're hanging with those guys, you're going to be just fine." So that
Yeah.
that really builds my confidence in living through this thing and uh, and having a good time at it. So I'm totally looking forward to it. But again, it is scary because it's nothing I've ever done. 45-minute criterium, I'm all in. But this is not that.
Right.
So,
I'd
anyway.
be more scared in a 45-minute criterium.
Well, that'll be next year. We'll talk you through, we'll get you on a road bike and get you ripping around corners at 35 miles an hour. Ken Leffler, he'd be good at that. He'll help you. Jason McCartney, he'll get you going.
Jason's in class this semester building a bike. Did I tell you that?
Oh, get out. No way. Is he building a road bike for the next
No, he's building
Tour
like
of Spain victory?
Monster cross.
Oh, huh.
Yeah.
That
really
sounds interesting. For those who don't know, Jason McCartney rode with, he was Discovery Channel. I actually have a rain jacket that was Jason McCartney's. Every year, it might have been an email. We might have had email in those days. Brett Griggs would send a thing. He's like, hey, we've got the Jason McCartney pile of stuff. Who wants what? And I ended up with a super nice Discovery Channel Gore-Tex rain jacket that I'm proud to say still pretty much fits, and B, is an awesome jacket. But that dude raced with Lance Armstrong, won stages in Tour of California, Tour of Georgia. It was either Tour of Italy, Giro d'Italia, or Vuelta a España. Do you remember which? He won a stage over there.
Yeah, I can't remember which of those. But you know what? He beat Lance as the King of the Mountains in Tour of California.
He did beat Lance as King of the Mountains in Tour of California. Yep, that was awesome. And I think, it was Tour of Georgia was early. I should do a pod with Jason. He'd be super fun.
Yeah. And, two-time Olympian.
Yeah, I forget about that. It's amazing. And he's building a bike with you this semester.
That's right. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, Steve, I will let you go because I know you've got a busy week with the Black Sheep crew. They're in kind of co-teaching the class with you.
Yeah.
I will put links to your episodes in the show notes so that people can find you and find out more about your class and some of your other experiences in Iceland and Alaska and beyond. And I will look forward to riding my bike this winter a lot and getting ready for Arrowhead and talking to you again about the next big part.
All right. This is fun, Dave. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed my conversation. I hope you got something out of it. This Arrowhead thing is definite paradigm shift for me, and I'm super stoked to have Steve help me through and help me answer some of the questions and get me ready to not only succeed at Arrowhead, but not have to be rescued from a ditch when it's 40 below in a snowstorm in northern Minnesota. So, that's kind of my bottom line. I want to live through the thing. Whether I get to the finish or not, living is high priority. So Steve's going to help me do that. I'm stoked about it, and I'm stoked to have his help. We'll be checking back periodically. Next week we're talking with Ken Kruger, the race director of the Arrowhead 135, get a bit of the history, the bit of the why, a bit of his advice for me and others like me who want to be prepared for a race like the Arrowhead 135. And then periodically I'll be throwing in episodes with Steve. I will take you on a training adventure as I get ready to, again, not die on the Arrowhead 135. One of the things that I'm going to be doing to prepare is riding the Core 4, where no surface is left untouched. Check it out. Who's ready for some Core 4 news? After a huge spike in riders and a super thank you to everyone for coming out this year, these guys jumped right back into the fire. It's no surface untouched again for 2024 because Core 424 has a sweet sound to it, no doubt. New routes, new distances, and a new you. That's right, y'all. They are mixing it up with more surprises and delights. New for 24 is the Core 40 distance. Just a bump up from the 20 mile and still has all the farmscapes and B roads and champagne gravel you'd expect from the folks at Core 4, just without the single track. They're telling us 60 is the new 50, miles that is. It's a no-surfaced, untouched, podium-eligible route with all the cats in addition to their marquee 100-mile event. It's the perfect blend of competition and community. We want Core 4 to be on your event calendar for 2024. Jump on Bike Reg today, snag your spot before this event reaches its cap. Come ride the wave and get more bodies on bikes. It's blazing hot action every year, and they'll keep the fire stoked all winter long with the 20, 40, 60, or 100-mile route. Core 424 has something for everyone. It's time for the next time. Let's go! Thanks again for listening. I appreciate your support. If you would like to support the show, please rate and review on your favorite podcast platform. If you want to help support this show financially, I would love it. Go to buymeacoffee.com and look for Bike Talk with Dave and drop a few coins in the bucket. Truly, I would appreciate that. It helps a lot, and I'll be happy to send you a sticker if you do. You can look for Bike Talk with Dave on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and all of the episodes are streaming on your computer at biketalk.bike. Hope you have a great week. Stay warm. Look forward to next week with Ken Kruger. And don't forget that nothing compares to the simple pleasure of riding a bicycle.